Down the
Gary,
stairs.
it's Wednesday night again, Gary.
Show 10.
Show 10. Is it
Can you
already
believe
went
that?
to double figures, Gary?
We're in show 10. I can't believe that. Honestly, we need to get a t-shirt with 10 on it because we've not got any other t-shirts made up for us.
You're not dropping a big hint, are you, Gary?
Not at all.
Did someone say that we're going to make us t-shirts up, Gary?
But there's a sponsorship idea in there as well, Andy. Do you not think if we wanted to showcase any charities or local traders, a wee t-shirt trade?
So? Advertise on my chest?
Yeah. I'll go skins.
There's plenty of room here, Gary.
Oh no, it's expanding. Constantly expanding. How are you anyway, Andy?
I'm doing good, Gary. It's been good. We had a couple of little techie problems last week. I kind of get chucked out of the system.
Aye, and then because you couldn't see me going, what about to say cheerio, you kicked me up.
No, but I don't think anybody noticed, Gary.
No, but what a brilliant show last week, Andy, wasn't it?
Wasn't it just? I was absolutely stuck for words, lost for words last week at how good it was. It was pure quality.
Man, and I think Jackie summed it up. It was epic.
It was absolutely epic. And for all of those that didn't see what last week looked like, it looked something like this, Gary, didn't it?
Oh, there's the after show party.
Yeah, I know. That is the after show party in the green room.
We can only get 6 on the screen, and Graham, who was a special pop-up guest last week, had to leave, but the 6 folk that were on the screen at the end, we had a bit of a laugh in the back room, but it flowed brilliantly last week. The entertainment was top class. It was emotional. It was funny. And for me, it teed up the whole Small Shop weekend and actually made it really quite special.
It was really great. And it was, I mean, the guests that we had were brilliant. It just got better and better and better. And we were on for an hour and a half. That's the longest we've ever done a chat show. Tonight's only an hour, but that was an hour and a half last week, Gary, and it flew by.
It did flew by.
It did flew by.
It flown by.
It was fantastic, and it teed up, as you say, it teed up the Small Shop weekend perfectly. It kicked off on the Friday night, and it was great to see such wonderful young talent on. They were singing, they were playing their guitars on Friday. Then on Saturday night, I tuned in for the Doosland Staying at Hame, which showcased some of our local poets, which was brilliant. I really enjoyed it, Gary.
Wasn't that great? I mean, Sean coming on and doing his poem in last week's show, I didn't know what to expect, and the way he delivered that and its context was just superb.
That was brilliant. Well, and Gary, we're still the #1 chat show in Paisley. We're the longest running chat show in Paisley, week number 10. But
you're making this up now. You're making it up as you go along.
Thank you to everyone for joining in, and we broadcast this every week, Wednesdays, 8 o'clock. We're on for an hour most weeks, apart from last week, obviously, and we love seeing all the social media comments coming in. So please make sure you follow us on Facebook, you follow us on Twitter if you get a comment or a question tonight, because tonight's going to be really interactive, I hope. So if you've got any questions, pop them in. But we also look at our Facebook analytics, and last week's show was the biggest yet. We reached 10 million users, Gary.
Oh, that's huge.
I've added a few zeros on there, but it was 10,000 views.
That was a 10,000 reach. That was the biggest. That was quite a peak.
10,000, absolutely.
But there he goes again. He's showing half his cup of tea. The content last week was different class. And Tony early on having everybody greeting. And then I think as the show moved on and the Small Shop video came up, I think you could tell it was a lot of folk having a wee greet, and that's no bad thing, because it really tugged at the heartstrings last week, talking about the town and the people in it.
Absolutely, and it's such a you know, that poem that Sean had put together, it just, for me, I mean, I had a big lump in my throat, Gary. I was stuck for words. It was awesome. Good to see a lot of our usual fans in this evening. I don't think Councillor Devine has missed one yet, Gary. I think he's seen all of them, hasn't he?
I'm not sure, but Eddie, have you seen all the shows? I think you come in maybe show 2, show 3.
Yeah. Late to the party. Graham McClatchy's in again tonight, and
yeah, well done, Graham. Last week, that was awesome what you did with the Small Shot digital program.
Judith Walker, always enjoy our show. So lots of good positivity out there. And Gary, we keep meaning to get Gary on the show. We were trying to convince him to get a lockdown haircut, but he wasn't up for it, was he? Nah.
We were the only ones that did it.
I know, exactly. Mine hasn't grown back yet. That's the only problem.
Mine's is all right. I mean, I think consistency is the word, Andy. I think we're quite cool with the consistency. Councillor Devine has missed one show.
But I think Jackie has probably seen them all, has she not?
I think so. Jackie, you seen the lot? You seen the 10? The box set?
The box set. Season 1, episode 10. And
talking about seasons. Hey, what did you say?
I was just going to say, talking of which, what have we got on the show tonight?
Oh, well, we know what's coming up. There's a lot of stuff to come up, and it's all about cinema. It's all about, I suppose it links back. We've spoken about this. We were a bit nervous about when it was right to talk about regen and to talk about economy and town centre.
Yep.
And we didn't want to do it too early because back in show 1, Andy, if he says, "Hey, what's the future going to be?" It's quite crass. Wrong time. Right subject, but wrong time. So we've waited. The government's changing its tune. There's a Chancellor today acting as if he's Frankie and Benny's giving out £10 luncheon vouchers. Can you believe that? Anyway, it's not a political platform.
Not on the script, Gary.
Not on the script. Anyway, I couldn't believe that. He's gone. And by the way, see if you come in a Monday or a Wednesday, I'll give you a tenner off. Watching a Chancellor is checking doing that. Everyone else is not too bad. Anyway, so we thought we need to get the time. We need to get the timing right. So when the government started to talk about economy, they started to talk about coming back into a bit of normality and softening things a bit. We don't want to focus on now. We want to focus on the future. We want to focus on the future of the town and the regen of the town and the work that we've been doing. And you know, we've thought there's not a right time, there's not a wrong time. So the past 3-4 weeks, we've been talking about town centre regeneration. We've been talking about Paisley vision. And we want to reveal tonight the work that we've been doing to build on that. I suppose work that we've been doing right up to that and in parallel with that.
Yep.
And now we're going to reveal everything about cinema.
Yep.
And the work that we've been doing. So I hope Andy, people like it.
This is an exclusive, Gary, because, you know, other than 1 or 2 selected stakeholders in the project, what we're about to show tonight has never been shown to anyone publicly. So this is a public reveal that we're going to be doing. So we're really kind of, you know, opening ourselves up. And what better place to open ourselves up to the community and to do it here on this platform? Because we really, what we've been doing is been full of consultation with lots of different community groups. We've been listening to what you're saying. We've been building it into our plans, and we're doing it because Paisley Community Trust is a group of people whose sole focus is on putting community at the heart of regeneration within the town. That's our aims, dead simple. We want to take the community and make sure that everything that we do going forward in the town that rebuilds, re-energises and regenerates the town has community at its heart. And that's not just town centre, that's all of the aspects in Paisley. And we've had some fantastic community leaders on the show already. And we want to do that in partnership with all the key organisations in the town. We want to do that in partnership with Renfrewshire Council. We want to do that in partnership with the academic institutions, everyone that's involved in the town's future. with the community at heart. That's what it's all about, Gary. So we're taking a bold step tonight.
We are. It's a bit. I was nervous last week. Then I go, "Oh, what the hell? It's about time we did this." You've made me really nervous again, Andy. But what I want to say to everybody watching, I want to encourage you to comment as this program moves on and ask questions.
Yep.
And give us feedback. We think what we're about to present to you is fantastic.
Yep.
We think it's transformational, not just for Regen in the town, but for the people of the town. There's Eddie. You just need to bear with it, okay?
I don't know if he's talking about the show or delivering the cinema. We're trying.
Well, Eddie and his influence has got a part to play. I know he's been really supportive over the years, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So before we do get into the plans, because in the nature of these things, we always like to kind of take you on a journey with us and talk about some of the things that have motivated us, because Paisley Community Trust have been focused on cinema. We kind of had one or two sort of false starts almost, but now we've really zeroed in. And that's because I think Paisley's got a fantastic, rich heritage in cinema, hasn't it, Gary?
Yeah, and I'm going to say to folk at the side, you need to bear with us. I know we're not winding you up, honestly, but we don't want to just go, there it is, what do you think? We're going to build up to this.
I know.
So the heritage of cinema for us is important to talk about Paisley's heritage in cinema. We've spent a lot of time researching cinema in the town and where it used to be, and it's really interesting for me anyway, doing that research, finding out where there used to be places that they put on films that you wouldn't normally think, oh, did they really?
Yeah.
And over and above some of the places that actually were physical cinemas. 13, I think I counted at one time, and in the same time in Paisley Town Centre was 13 cinema spaces, which is flabbergasting to think.
Yeah, 13, Gary. It's just been an astounding number, and some of these will be more memorable. And we talked about these a couple of weeks ago, but one of the ones in the high street that most people will recognise because the frontage still remains is the Picture House. And that little link, house, you can see that on the screen there, scottishcinemas.org.uk. It's a brilliant source of all things cinema. So that's the Picture House up in the high street. If you've got memories of going to the Picture House, it'd be great to hear that. This one, Gary, the Regal.
ABC Minors at the Regal.
Yeah, I remember
Benji and Herbie, and
I remember going to see Grease in that one, Gary, queuing up outside what is the University of the West of Scotland. I remember queuing up to see Grease.
That's the word, Andy.
Grease is the word, apparently. There, Gary. Kelburn was probably the one I visited the most, Gary.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time in the Kelburn.
Same for you. What was the last movie you saw in the Kelburn?
Oh, geez, oh man. I remember going to see Home Alone, Elephant Man. It was around about that time that I stopped going to the Kelburn, just before it shut down. In fact, we were talking earlier about what might have been the first film that I went to see in Paisley, and it was something like a way back. It was Sound of Music, Ben-Hur, all those types of films a way back when I was really young. Jungle Book, and then the last film that we saw, we like to go to the Grosvenor up the West End.
Yeah.
We'll maybe weave that into the conversation as the night goes on, Andy.
Aye.
But in 1917 was the last film we went to see up in the Grosvenor. What? Just a fantastic experience, a fantastic film.
Some movie, isn't it? And the Grosvenor's a kind of interesting place, and you get every man in Glasgow, but Paisley is bereft. There's one that some of our I was going to say slightly older members of our audience, Gary, but we don't want to be ageist at all here. But that's the Astoria. We spoke about that the other week. The Bug Hut, as it was affectionately known.
The
The place was full of bugs and they had to fumigate it before every viewing, apparently, Gary.
Yeah, my dad tells me about that. He said there was one in Paisley, and there was also a bug hut in Johnston. And they were affectionately known as that because of the fumigation.
Aye.
The guy that used to come out and puff the stuff and kill the bugs.
Aye.
There's Elaine Templeton saying the first film was Pinocchio at the Kilburn. I think she's lying about that.
Her nose just got a couple inches bigger there. Posted that up, Gary.
My patter has just got worse. It's really bad.
Oh dear. There's John McGuire. Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
The Eagle B movie.
John McIntyre, Clockwork Orange. A few bands in there, John. A few bands been inspired by Clockwork Orange to name themselves after. I think Heaven 17 were in there. Duran, I think, were in there. Anyway, we digress.
We do digress. There's Braveheart, and a fight broke out.
Yeah.
I think my last movie that I saw in the Kilburn was Jaws 3D. I think that was definitely. I'm trying to rack my brains. And I think the first movie I ever got taken to see was The Jungle Book.
Yeah, you've got an LP. You've got the LP. I don't know if I've got it downstairs, but we've got that LP and we've got the Sound of Music LP. Have you got the Grease LP?
No, I think my sister had it. I have to ask my sister. And there's another great memory from the movies is the advertisements. Lily, your favourite.
See that advert, that Kiora, I'll be your dog. Oh, I'll be your dog.
I never had time, Gary, but I'm going to do something cinema advertising related for the next time.
Oh yeah, good.
But it was good. So that hopefully for everyone sets the scene for what Paisley used to have from the cinema point of view. But then cinema just stopped when the Kilburn closed down. That was it. And I suppose from a kind of market point of view, it was the kind of right timing. But there is a resurgence in cinema, and it features heavily in the Paisley Vision document, Gary, that we...
Yeah, I just want to reflect back on what Alan Anthony said a week or so ago, that part of the reason for the demise of cinema was retail was so buoyant, and retail pushed cinema to the periphery of towns and out of towns.
Yep.
And not wanting to revisit the 60s, 70s, or even 80s, the vision harks back to 1950s, but not in style or fashion or economic, but in content for what might be included in a town centre. So in a town centre context, the Paisley vision reflects back to what was in and around town centres in the 1950s.
Yep.
And cinema was part of that. And so the vision was really quite an interesting process and a brilliant document.
Yeah. And it really is, for those of you who watched the week before last, Show 8, we had Alan Anthony on from 360 Architects. We had Alistair Morrison on from Renfrewshire Council. And the document, it's available for download. We'll put the link out there later on. But the document kind of paints a picture of what Paisley could be like by 2030. Now, I appreciate times have changed. When the document was produced, no one expected COVID to have the impact that it has had. However, that still paints a positive picture about the town centre and what the town centre could look like. And as well as residential, as well as some degree of retail, cinema plays a big part in it. And from our point of view, when you were looking at the Paisley Vision document, there was no detail on what project was the first project to get kicked off. And I think that's where Paisley Community Trust has come in and said, well, actually, let's try and make the cinema project number one. So that was for those of you that maybe saw that graphic, and if you kind of screw up your eyes a wee bit or take your glasses off, if you're me, it's perfectly in focus. But that basically says project one. And what we want to do is bring project one to reality. We want to turn that into reality. So
and we're going to tell people about it, Andy, aren't we?
Right now we're getting there, Gary.
Yeah, I know that. Just to keep people informed.
Absolutely. So so we've talked about project one. We've talked about our history and heritage within cinema. Now we're going to talk about what Project One outlined by way of potential places that this cinema could be. So I'm just going to add some my PowerPoint to this. Hopefully,
so Andy, so what the vision did is it laid out in context where should we put a cinema.
Yep.
So there's the view. Hopefully you can all see that quite clearly. So if you look at that, the orange map around the edge there is where the vision designated as being the focal point of the document. That's the town centre. It's a high street focused thing. So all our and I think it's probably worth saying at this stage, while we were doing the Baker Street project, our focus moved to the high street.
Yeah.
Let's not be under any illusions in that process.
Yeah.
We moved our focus to the high street, and we contributed to the Paisley vision.
Yeah.
So the three blocks that you can see there, those are the three options.
Yeah.
That were considered. The three options that were published that were considered. So Andy, you want to run through the three that were considered?
Aye, and Gary, quick check just whilst I'm doing this. Can you hear me okay?
No.
Right,
of course, yes, I can hear you, Andy. I can hear you.
And this slide should advance. Look at that. How good is that?
Okay, so the Woolworth site was one of them. So there's a bit of detail in the vision document about the Woolworth site and why potentially it could be a cinema. Next one, Andy.
Oh, hold on the note.
Next one is and again, please bear in mind that these are conceptual options that are considered in the vision document, and none of them at that stage were taken any further. And they're fairly at sketch, very high level, conceptual level.
Yeah.
So the YMCA building was considered as the potential site for a cinema. What could we do with it? Could a cinema go into the YMCA building? I think there's another image related to that, Andy.
Yeah, there is actually, and I quite like this next image because it shows you a new pend going through. So that's kind of where I remember there was a bus bay and there was the butchers there around about that, and this was taking you through at the side into an area at the back. If I actually go back, you can see. And at the back of the YMCA building, there was reutilization of some of the space in there. But that was creating, and that again, just to caveat it, that's an option, that's a thought.
Yeah.
It's not set in stone by any respect at all.
So that was a really interesting one, Andy. And I think at this stage we need to, and maybe regularly we need to thank 360 Architects for the work that they've done in this document. Endorsed, sponsored by Renfrewshire Council, Scotland's Towns Partnership, and the Scottish Government.
Yeah.
So that's really quite interesting that it's at that level. So these concepts have come out at that level. So and that's the YMCA. That's option 2, Andy. Option 3 is the Littlewoods building. So the Littlewoods building is just at the cenotaph. So if you look at that now, it's bargain buys.
Yeah.
Quite a big footprint.
Yeah.
It's high street. As soon as you walk down Moss Street, it's quite an interesting space.
Yep.
So those are the three. It's maybe worth talking, Andy, about some of the other areas of the town that we threw into the mix here that aren't in the vision document.
Yeah, there's a couple of areas because ultimately one of the things that we do is that we always go out and we consult with the community. And of course, there's a number of places that will come up. 360 Architects and the council identified these three as options, but there were a few that we had sort of thrown into the mix just simply because people talk about them so often. So the first one was the TA building. And I guess everyone is, anyone that stays in Paisley knows the TA building, beautiful frontage, in ruin at the backs. And, we don't want to see that going to waste. So that was one of the options that we had looked at. Obviously, as you'll know, the TA building is probably off the market now, as it's had planning permission either submitted or approved for student accommodation. So it's great that it's going to get used, and thankfully,
good news, Andy.
Thankfully, the fire didn't look like it damaged too much, so hopefully they'll be able to rescue that. So that was option one that we chucked in. The other one, Gary?
Yes, any time something comes up related to this, and of course we considered the Liberal Club as well. So the Liberal Club's been considered.
Yep.
And I think Councillor Eddie Devine is quite right. There's planning permission, I think, in for accommodation there as well. So a couple of good news stories to sites that we considered. We also considered a wildcard site, which was the Mothercare site, not the Mothercare building, but the Mothercare site.
Yeah.
So we considered that from a point of view that potentially it could wrap round into the Arts Centre.
Absolutely.
But I think ultimately, and this is where we considered feedback, we can't say this is where it's going to go because we think. We've got to get out to consultation, and we've got to take that 100% on board.
Yeah.
If we didn't do that, then we're up for scrutiny to be shut down.
Aye. So one of the things we did, Gary, and I'm conscious of moving on to, we've got a lot of people are really keen to see what we've got. But one of the things that we did was we went out to consultation and we carried out a cinema survey. I mean, this is only one of the bits of consultation that we've done, but I'm just going to pop that full screen so that you can see some of the details on it. So, we carried out a survey, and in the small print there is the number of people that we surveyed, the platforms that we surveyed them on, and how long the survey was live for. So anyone that wants to scrutinise it, we can get the details sent out to you. But by all accounts, it was actually quite a large survey number that we had, and it was over a wide range of different platforms. So it does have credibility, but I think more than anything else, a 96% positive support for a new cinema in the town. 80% want that cinema to be in the high street area, so that was really important. And a lot of people will say, well, what about, where can I park my car? Or, mostly parking tends to be the concern about high street. But when you look at it really objectively, the high street has got so much opportunity to get into from transportation, public transportation, and very, very, very nearby on-street or public car parks close by. 80% wanted that in the high street. And then some of the some of the stats in terms of when people go and how many and how often that they go was very, very positive. So this captured quite a large area, not just in Paisley but in surrounding areas. And you can look at some of the other reasons that people want to go. Clearly, blockbusters are key, but you see other things in there, such as live broadcasts of sporting events or opera or theatre. So it's not just one audience that's wanting to see blockbusters all the time. We do see that broader interest in what cinema's got to offer. So that was pretty impressive. So we're getting to the bit here now, Andy. We're getting to the bit. So we're going to talk about our preferred location. So we assessed all the data, we assessed all the views, and we come up with what we felt was our preferred location. And that was, Gary?
Bargain Buys Littlewood site. So that's where we think is best for a cinema in Paisley Town Centre, having taken into consideration every aspect. So that's what it looks like now.
Yeah.
So we think that's the site that Paisley's community cinema and digital academy should be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the site. So we've thrown a few things there. So right in the middle of the town, you come off the train, down Moss Street. This is what you see. That's a disgrace.
Yeah.
And we want to change that.
Yeah.
So at first glance, you think, how's that going to work?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's got such a fantastic viewpoint. It's right next to Paisley Cross. I mean, it's synonymous with Paisley Cross, but what an eyesore of a building. What can we do? So what we thought we'd do is we'd actually go and see the building, and we'd go and explore what is actually in the building. So before we dig into some of the pictures of things that you perhaps have not seen, you'll be aware that obviously there's a retail unit in the ground floor. Bargain Buys is currently there, and by all accounts, it's trading quite well, quite successfully, albeit COVID has had an impact on all of that, but Bargain Buys is there. To the right-hand side, you see a sort of maroon doorway. That takes you down into the basement section, which is home to the Secret Collection. And if you've not been, and when you can get to see it, I would really advise that you get along and book to go and see the Secret Collection. It's artifacts and pieces of museum history, displays, paintings, memorabilia. It's everything that you can possibly imagine that would be in a museum store, and it's in the Secret Collection, and it's been wonderfully preserved and wonderfully accounted, and the folks at Renfrewshire Leisure will take you through. So that's the basement, that's the first floor. But if you look at those windows, what's in those windows and what's above those windows, well, I'll click onto the next screen if I can do that. That's what it looks like inside.
It was actually quite difficult to visualize from outside, because we thought the site was so good, but maybe we would have to displace a retailer, and nobody wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So we took the blinkers off, and we said to the agents, give us a good look round the site.
Yeah.
So we went up into the first floor, and that's just behind those square windows that you can see. So right in behind the square windows, that's the first floor. So the whole of the first floor is it's not derelict by any means.
No, it's in actually pretty good repair, but it is huge, absolutely
it's massive. It's absolutely massive.
And just to be really clear, when we've talked about cinema, folks, we've never talked about having a huge, big, soulless box. This is not about creating a large multiplex where it's all about volume. This is about experience. This is about providing a really accessible, comfortable place to go. So we don't need those high ceiling heights. If you imagine Grosvenor, or if you've been to Everyman, that type of setup is what we're looking at. But that's the first floor, and then we found a wee way onto the roof, and we got an amazing sneak peek at the roof now.
Yeah, we clambered up there, Andy, and if you look at that's the front. So if you look at where that clock is, that's the corner of Moss Street and the High Street, and just down there is the chemist. Just to the left is Fairfield's. Yeah, and those concrete facades, that's all they are.
Yeah,
that's a crane lifting lay job when you're doing the reconstruction.
Absolutely, and what you're missing there, and what you need to imagine, those that have tuned in to watch, that is one of the best views in Paisley ready to be shown. That view, imagine, if you will, you're on that roof and you've got an open view over the Cenotaph, over the High Street. It's one of the best views in Paisley, over Paisley Cross, of course, and we want to do something that frames the views of the such spectacular town and such spectacular architecture.
Yeah, not just those, Andy. I mean, I was just about to say, we stumbled across. It's absolutely amazing being on that roof, because you're looking to the High Street and you turn right, and that's what you see. That's the potential roof terrace that we envisage, or the roof space that we envisage, and that's the view. Have you got a view at the back, Andy?
I don't think I have. There's a view when we went with some people from the town, from various dignitaries and officials, and then we were up on the roof with them having a look.
There's a view there, Andy, at the back corner.
You can get to see the mills. You can get to see Saucil Hill. It is just absolutely fantastic. So that's what we want to do, folks. That's what we want to redevelop within the town. Now, there's lots of questions coming in, and I think what we'll do in the interest of time, we're going to continue on with the presentation, and we'll try and come back.
We'll get to the end, Andy. See if we run on for 10, 15. That's okay.
Okay, that's fine. We're all good. We're all good, and we know that we've got a couple of people that might be wanting to pop in as well, Gary. So that pretty much takes us up to our choice and why we think this is the right choice for redevelopment in the high street, redevelopment within the town, because it will have the most significant impact within the town. And also it's got some of the most spectacular views. So we went back to our architects 360 who carried out the original vision, and we said, right, now that you've got that idea of what the overall town could look like, if project one was cinema, how could you start to put some meat on the bones of what you've sketched out?
Yeah, so that happened, Andy. But in the meantime, we approached the council and we approached Regional Screen Scotland and asked them if they would fund a piece of work. And that piece of work was, we'd done our light touch review of the town. We come up with this. This is the site. We said, look, it's in the vision. It's been sponsored by Paisley, Renfrewshire Council, Scotland's Towns Partnerships, and the government. It's in the vision. Let's look at this in a wee bit more detail. And the council awarded us some money, and the Regional Screen Scotland awarded us some money to do a feasibility study on the site. So Andy spoke about ceiling heights. It's important that we recognise that there is a ceiling height restriction in cinemas. We wanted to see, is that site capable of taking our vision for what cinema could be in the town on the location without too much disruption?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of great comments coming in, very positive comments coming in on Facebook and YouTube. And again, we're showing you this. This is our first outing on this, so we really want your feedback. And if you have comments, even if you've got concerns, even if you've got questions, post them up. We want this to be as open as possible, because if this is not right, this is a community's chance to do something huge in their town. And we want this done right. And I'm sure you all want this done right as well. So if we need to get it right, let's take the time, put up your comments and your suggestions. So I think we're now going to get on to the unveil of what the vision for Project One would look like. So I'm going to go.
I think the original image that you're going to see here, if I'm right, Andy, is the sketch image that was in the vision document. So just so you know, that this was developed as part of the conceptualizing of the vision. So there's no depth, there's no design, there's no ceiling heights, there's no rake, there's no size of cinema space. This is an idea.
Yeah.
And because we've chosen it as the preferred site through the feasibility, there's a hell of a lot of detail went into it. So what you're about to see is the first ever reveal of what Paisley's new cinema could look like.
Absolutely. And just to be really clear, what you're seeing right now is just an early sketch. What we're just about to show you is what we think could sit on that site with depth and detail behind it. Are you ready, Gary?
Yeah, I'm ready. I hope everyone else likes this. I'm really nervous now, Andy, and excited. So get it revealed.
Here it is here, folks. Wow.
So that's having looked at the potential of what the design would be for Paisley's new cinema. So we're going to take you through a lot of the detail in this.
Yeah. So just a bit of backdrop for some of the comments and some of the questions in there. So what we wanted to do was, first of all, create something that was possible. So we've kept retail in there on the ground floor because we think that is important. We think that Paisley still needs to have some form of retail in the high street. We kept a secret collection in there. It's so good, it shouldn't be removed. We're going to work in partnership with both retail and the Renfrewshire Leisure to develop the first floor and the roof space of this existing building. We're going to put a brand new front on it. It's been inspired by the classic age of cinema, Art Deco. So if you look at the styling, if you look at the design, we're looking at putting something like that. And a lot of people have been asking about accessibility. You're absolutely correct. Accessibility is at the heart of everything that we're doing. So if you are in a wheelchair or have accessibility needs, they will be accommodated in this brand new foyer and reception space. So that's what it could look like. That presence in our high street, I think it would look amazing. Let's dig into some of the detail of what that would actually look like now, Gary.
Yeah, I mean, the frontage is amazing itself, but as you dig into some of the detail, Andy, when we know it's an amazing space and we've looked at every aspect of it. So there's the ground floor. You see in the bottom right-hand corner there, it's still accommodating the secret collection. If you could see the drawings here, there's 2 lifts there. So when you were looking at disability access, that's absolutely covered. There's 2 lifts there. There is a stairwell going up, but that's the ground floor. That's a retained retail space.
So you basically come into this space. What the architects have designed is an atrium that will run through the entire building to give you light, to give you view, to see movement going through that building. If you go in through the red stairs or the lifts at the side, that'll take you up to the first floor. And it's important to point out there's retail space available down there and access into the secret collection. But as you go up 1 floor, and let me click the right button this time, this is effectively where the bulk of the cinema rooms and spaces will be. It's kind of difficult to point out, but I'm going to hover my mouse and hopefully you can see it. But as you come up either through the lifts or on the stair concourse there, you'll go into a large reception foyer with a restaurant and cafe bar. You'll have along this area, you'll have your bar and your ticket sales. There are community spaces that we've yet to develop, but we want to develop them in partnership with the community of what we want those spaces to be. And then as you go through into the actual cinema spaces and at the back, there are a total on this floor, a total of 5 rooms, 4 smaller rooms, and it's more kind of sofa style, low rake, comfortable seating that you will be in. So there'll be 4 cinema rooms, and then at the back there is 1 much larger room. What's the capacity of that one, Gary? 106?
Yeah, 161, Andy. That's the one that pokes through the ceiling space up into the roof space, and it's a consultation with Regional Skiing Scotland, and anyone that's given us advice has said you should try and build in a big space if you can. So that big space pokes through. So that's roof space.
So this will be the newly developed roof space, and you can see that area at the back. That's where that new double height cinema space will come through. So if you've got a big crowd, if you've got a conference, if you've got an education event, whatever it might be, you can have that in there. But I'm just going to flick back to the page before. You can either go up this spiral staircase that we've created here, or you can go up through lift access again, and that takes you on to the next floor. So up through the spiral staircase here, or through the lifts. Again, another community space here. There's a smaller event space, cinema screen. So, you know, we're also looking at putting in here a digital skills academy, and that's a new thing that's not on these plans. But I think more than anything, having a rooftop cafe bar to be able to overlook the town centre, to be able to overlook Paisley Cross, the Cenotaph, the High Street, you know, and part of that is outdoors as well. So this part here is indoors. This corner here is an outdoor space. Obviously, we appreciate it doesn't, the sun doesn't shine 365 days a year in Paisley, so we've got to be aware of the climate we're in.
At both levels, Andy, it's high street facing. So both levels, the frontage is the seating. For cafe bar or cafe.
And then this space here, this corridor through the back will be a cinema specific heritage sort of museum piece. So there'll be displays along that wall. There's going to be some office space and toilet facilities and various other things. And then as you get to the back, you can actually hire this entire floor out if you're taking on a conference, and you can have all your guests here. You can take them through to the back. This view will be exposed, so that'll have those wonderful views of the Abbey, the Town Hall, away over to the Mills, Saucil Hill. But then you can have people come in and down into that large cinema, so you can rent that place out specifically for large conferences and events. So that's the plans, Gary. Let's look at some of the images.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, Andy, I mean, that's just to be able to reveal that is a privilege for us to be working on this on behalf of the community, and hopefully it strikes a chord with people, and we've got the right site, the contents is right. But let's rattle through, Andy, because I know you've gave me a wee buzz there. A couple of folk have buzzed in and they want to come on screen.
Absolutely. So we'll quickly finish off in these images. So quickly on this one, this would be what you would see as you go into that building. You'd see right through the building. You'd be able to see folk moving about. There'd be a red carpeted set of stairs to take you up to that first floor, or the lift access, or through to the back at the shop. You go up that floor and then you get to the main space, which could look like that. It's a very large open atrium space to allow you to, sit and chill with your friends, overlook Paisley Cross, or go up to the floor above. And
behind us, on you go, Andy, no batter.
Batter on. So, folks, that's what we've got. We've got lots of comments in here, and we're going to try and take as many of them as we possibly can. We've got 2 guests that are wanting to join us this evening, but it's really important. We don't want to miss the purpose on all of this. And it's really important. Why are we doing this? Well, there's so many reasons and so many causes. Being able to, reconnect socially isolated components of our community is vital. Being able to make accessible cinema from a community hub point of view, a place where people are welcome, a place where people can make their own, that is so important. To entertain, to educate, to really bind our communities together. All of those things are going to happen, but it will have a really positive effect on the high street. It will have an economic effect on the high street, and that's what we think is really important. And we've put some numbers behind them. We had a business case developed. We looked at what the impact could be, and the numbers are pretty staggering.
Yeah, so the impact is not just social and cultural. Economically, this stacks up. So over a 10-year period, 52 new jobs, 5 million new footfalls. So if you take that annually, 500,000 new people walking up and down our high street and in our town centre, 40 million economic boost. And because Paisley Community Trust are charitable and we're a community organisation, every penny that comes in that is surplus will be reinvested back into the town and into community projects. And we project that to be £5 million over 10 years.
Yeah, so it's significant. And we know that the town centre traders are hurting right now. We know that they need solutions now to get them through this period of time. But looking over the horizon is so vital that we lay down foundations for the longevity and resilience of our high street. And having something that pulls people into the town centre, spending local, is really vital. And when you look at a 10-year impact, 40 million extra into the town, into the traders, is a huge number. And as Gary said, 5 million will be reinvested by Paisley Community Trust in that 10-year period. So that's the plans. I hope you all love it, to be quite honest, because we've worked hard on pulling this together. And I'm just going to leave that image up. And I think we're going to go to some of our guests now, Gary, and bring them in.
Who's phoned in?
Right, are we bringing both in or one in? What's the order? I think I've got Bill was in first, and then
Bill. Bring Bill in.
Bill in, right? So Bill, coming to you now, sir. Robert will be with you in a moment. So bringing you in, Bill. Bill, how are you, sir?
Hi, Andy. How are you?
Hi, Bill. Hiya, Bill. How you doing?
I'm good. Hi, Gary. I'm fine. I'm getting a little bit of static on your sound. Hopefully, you're hearing me okay.
Yeah.
Quite quiet, Bill, but we can just about make you out.
Okay. Can I just say I found the whole process that the Paisley Trust and indeed the local authority and the whole community in Paisley that have adopted here as a case study that could be an example to anywhere in the UK, and it's desperately needed, this type of activity. And the communication that you're taking on this evening brilliant, and I've seen some of the messages that you're getting from people that are watching this. That's fantastic, and you know, there is absolutely no doubt that this space needs to be reintroduced to the town as a community hub, and the way that you've conducted this process is first class, and indeed we included it in our Build Back Better COVID-19 High Streets paper as a classic example of what you need to do. So well done, congratulations on that. From my personal perspective, I think that the interior of this is absolutely spot on. I think the exterior is a personal issue. The Art Deco design that you've chosen looks great. I think you need to do a test of time on it, because you know what? When those people put up the Littlewoods building in whenever it was it 60s, somewhere like that, did they think that it would be such an eyesore 50 years' time?
Yeah,
and the answer is no, they didn't.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they wouldn't have done it. So, you know, I think it's a personal taste. I love the first design, actually. I was in love with the drawing. So, but that's just a personal thing. I do love Art Deco, and I do think when you've got such historic buildings around you, having an Art Deco actually says, look, we're not going to attempt to compete with these wonderful historic buildings. We're going to put something in there that's got this Art Deco feel to it. So that's my one comment. My other comment is, guys, it's very brave putting all that retail space back on the ground floor. So I hope you got some plans for that, because that's going to be a challenge going forward. So have a plan B for that space in the community.
Yeah, absolutely, Bill.
Because it may be, you know, this is going to be open in the evening time as well, and your shops are going to be closed. So, you know, there's a challenge there. But those are two comments. Aside that, I as Gary knows, I'm over the moon with the work you guys do. I think the Scottish towns, whatever it's called, that the guys Lee Sparks and the other guy, I can never remember his name, but Phil Prentice. How can you forget Phil Prentice? But anyway, you can't. The fact is, you know, you are an example to the UK, and I quote it all the time. I was actually on a local authority call with the Scarborough people today, and you know, just quoting back to them that you've got to engage with the community. You have to have a vision, and you have to. It has to be a community-based hub. It can't be based on just retail anymore. And you've done it. And hats off. I can't. Well,
appreciate you. I appreciate you popping up and popping in and supporting us. Thank you very much.
Fantastic, Bill. Bill, I'm going to take you out of the stream, Bill, and I'm going to bring in our next guest. So,
cheers, Bill.
Join us. Robert, how are you, sir?
I'm very well. How are you both?
Great, Robert.
Yeah.
Good to see you here.
Yep,
Robert, just by way of introduction, Robert is you Chief Executive of Regional Screen Scotland. Is that the right title?
That's it, yep.
And responsible for what?
Well, our ambition is always to enable more people in more places to share great screen experiences. So one way we do that very directly is we run the Screen Machine mobile cinema that tours throughout the Highlands of Scotland. But the other main way we do it is by working with folks like yourself in communities on the ground who've got the ambition to bring cinema back into the very heart of communities. And as some of the folk watching will remember, we've been with this project for a long time, because it's over 4 years ago since we brought the Screen Machine into Paisley just before Christmas for a special one-night visit to help kick off your plans. And we were delighted to be able to contribute to funding this architectural study. You'll see in the news at the moment negative comments, oh, this is the death of cinema, COVID's finished cinema off. It's rubbish. What they fail to say is that 2018 had the highest level of cinema admissions in the UK since 1970. That's almost 50 years. Cinema has come back in a huge way. And one of the ways it's come back is by coming back into town centres and city centres. We don't have many examples of that yet in Scotland, outside Glasgow and Edinburgh. But in England, this has now become a very common model that city centre, town centre, new or revived cinemas are seen as a key way to regenerate town centres, to get that evening economy back, to retain that local spend, and to encourage and promote surrounding businesses. So this seems to me absolutely the vision for Paisley. And Bill says, I was so impressed by the way you've worked at this over the years, the way you've taken the community, the agencies, the local authorities with you.
Yep. And Robert, obviously, I mean, we thoroughly believe in this project, and we think that it will have such an impact for the communities of Paisley, but we also feel that it will have quite a very strong economic stimulus impact for the high street and the rest of the town. Would you agree, based on your expertise and the knowledge that you have, something like this landing in Paisley High Street, the positive ripple effect is going to be pretty significant?
There's a guy called Stuart Hanson down at De Montfort University who's been doing a lot of work on these kinds of interventions in England. And yes, there's a great deal of hard evidence, even at the scale we're talking about here, of that kind of impact. Yeah. And what I think is particularly unusual and exciting about this project is the idea that you've already alluded to, Andy, that this is going to be owned by a charitable body. We're familiar with small and community cinemas like the Burke's in Aberfeldy or the Picture House in Campbellton that are owned by the community. But this is a big beast. This is a big multiplex right in the heart of Scotland's biggest town. And you're aiming that this is something that, while it will function commercially, it will show all the big commercial movies in the highest standards. Yep. Ultimately, the beneficiaries from that are not going to be a bunch of shareholders somewhere else, but the community of Paisley itself. And I think that's a fantastic vision.
That's a really important point that you make there, Robert, because a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, there's a cinema down in Linwood, or there's a cinema at Braehead, or there's a cinema at Silverburn." And yes, there are cinemas in relatively close proximity, but our offering, number one, will be different. It will be a community space. It won't just be cinema. There'll be lots of events, capability for learning there as well. But the most important, I think, differentiating point on our plans, and that's why I think the people of Paisley and beyond should really embrace this, is that the surpluses generated by this won't be going to London or New York or wherever else they go to. The profits, the surpluses, will be reinvested back into community projects. And this cyclical economy that we're looking to establish in the town, I think, is the way ahead. And it's great to hear you recognise that, Robert. And thanks so much for coming on the programme.
Yeah, thanks for popping in, Robert. Appreciate your support over the years, and I'm sure we'll speak again soon.
Yep. Best of luck, guys.
Thank you, Robert. Cheers. Now. Gary, I'm going to put us side by side again. Let me just take the vision of the future, and I think, to be quite honest, the response that we've got in from those watching has been brilliant. Anyone that's on Facebook will be able to see all of these comments, but great comments coming in from everyone on board. Mike Dillon's making an appearance. Love the detail of the cinema. Karen's given us looks fantastic. First design to modern. That was the original sketch. Yeah. This second design. So good to see Liana supporting this one. Prefer the second design. Art Deco. Darren from the YMCA. Great to see. Just absolutely brilliant. It's been
it is a bit more subtle, and the design is stunning. I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So that's what it is, Andy. I think we should run over 15. Let's run over by 15 minutes.
No worries, folks.
So there are some questions
Yeah, if you've got questions, we're going to be able to get to them. But what we're also going to do, most importantly, is the images that you've seen tonight. We're going to put them up on our Facebook page, so you'll be able to get a closer look at some of the detail on. In fact, we'll put the accompanying 2030 vision of Paisley. We'll put the link on there for you to take a look at, and then we'll be able to put some of our images on. That will maybe take a day or two, but we'll post them on this, and we'll post them up.
So this is the culmination of a period of work that we had planned to reveal earlier in the year, with us being in pause. That's it now out there. And there's a few questions about ownership, time scale. We're happy to answer any aspect of this.
Yeah, absolutely. We
need to be a bit cagey with some of it. Some of it's relatively commercially sensitive.
Commercially sensitive, Gary, isn't it?
You like that?
Yeah.
I picked it up about 18 months ago.
Yeah. I think in terms of ownership, because someone did ask the question, it's in private ownership right now.
Yeah.
And it's fair to say that conversations are underway. Would that be fair? That's about as much as we can go, Gary.
Yeah. Yes. We've been in discussions. It's not a football player we're signing.
Yeah.
It's a massive big building in the middle of the town centre that somebody owns.
Yeah, absolutely.
With a retailer in it at the moment.
Yeah.
So we're speaking to them, and I wanted to get across some of the plates that we've been spinning. When we moved from the Baker Street site, we had quite a deep dialogue with the Scottish Land Fund, who were going to help us buy the Baker Street site. And then we said to them, look, we're shifting. Everything underneath, everything underlying, all the charitable objectives of community, charity, all of that stuff still exists, but we're shifting it up here. Are you sticking with us? They said, yeah, totally. So the Scottish Land Fund are with us, which is the potential of purchasing a building on the high street. So that's number one. That's one plate. They pointed us to another plate, which was, it would be really beneficial and valuable to us if we knew that you had the backing of the council and that you had other funding coming your way. And they pointed us to one. So they said this plate here would be more valuable if that other plate there was also spinning.
Yep.
I hope I'm telling this story and it makes some sense.
Aye.
So that plate says, get that one spinning. That one said, get that one spinning. So now we have grant applications and Scottish Land Fund knowing that each of them coexist.
Yep.
Does that make sense to you, Andy?
Well, it makes sense to me because I'm involved in the process, Gary.
Yeah.
But I suppose to the layperson, that's the acid test. But I guess, in short, to be able to fund this is going to be relatively complex. It's going to be relatively involved. And we're going to have both public and private in some form of balance. Obviously, Renfrewshire Council there is a first port of call. You've got Scottish governmental initiatives like the Scottish Land Fund. We're doing everything that we can within our capability and knowledge to have all of these grant applications spinning. If you can help, incidentally, if any of you have got expertise in this or any of you know how to move this project forward, we'd be delighted to hear from you. So please do keep in touch. I want to go to some of the other questions that we've been getting in tonight, Gary, because there are a couple of really good points that are either questions that have been raised or points that have been made. So Hayden Hughes, thanks Hayden for the question. Is the front of the Paisley Centre not listed? I think the front of the Paisley Centre will be listed, Hayden. Our plans is a little bit closer to the cross. So you've got the Littlewoods building that we're planning to go into. You've then got Marks and Spencer's, Gary, is that right? And then it's the front of the Paisley Centre.
Yeah, the front of the Paisley Centre used to be Paisley Picture House, and they saved that when they built the Paisley Centre in if the plans for the Paisley Vision come to fruition, they'll be knocking down the Paisley Centre and keeping it again. Because yes, it is listed.
Yeah, Adam Halliday. Adam, thanks so much for your comment there. It could also show homegrown films. You're absolutely spot on. This is what this place is about. Yes, we're going to have blockbuster movies. Yes, we're going to have art house movies. Yes, we'll have sports events or whatever. But one thing that we want to do from grassroots level in the town, and we've got lots of creative organisations in the town that we want to work with, but let's get the people of Paisley and Renfrewshire telling their stories. That's what we want to do. We want to have facility that you can come in and edit and produce and create your own films. What are your stories that you want to tell? What is it about your area, your community? And what we're looking at doing is potentially having these initially short films. So if you go along to watch the movie, the trailers that you see beforehand will be a homegrown story told by Paisley or Renfrewshire people. We think that would be great. That's one of the
Paisley shorts. So instead of a B movie, when we were boys, Andy used to go in and see 2 films, and one was fairly lengthy. We want to encourage Paisley to have its own shorts and to be made upstairs in the Digital Academy and shown. So films made upstairs, films made out in the region, people making their own films, and we'll show them before the main movie, and it'll be Paisley shorts.
Yep. Absolutely. Lillian, great comment about film festival. I think Gary Chittick had also mentioned about film festivals as well. Absolutely. If you want to come in and get involved and spearhead that, then this place will be a centre for all aspects of film and moving art, I guess, is the way. There's Gary chatting about that. Let me just go through some of the other questions. We've got just so many comments in tonight. It's been fantastic.
Elaine had a question earlier on about timeline, Andy.
Timeline, yeah. I can't find that particular question, how long it's going to take. So, Gary, let's talk about timeline.
Well, we've been conscious of not rushing this. But now that we're here with it, we think it might be a 3-year project. So to open the doors, that's why we think we're peaking right forward through COVID and beyond it. In 3 years' time, when we've got a cinema in the high street, we'll look back and think, what was all that about? So we need to be there. Our thinking is in 3 years. So it will build through first phase design, first phase construction and shell works, first phase cinema fit out, potentially second phase. So we're looking at all of that. We're trying to be pragmatic and realistic. 3 years, we think 3 years is realistic.
Susan's made a great point, coordinating with all the events, the Spree Halloween Festival, absolutely.
Totally.
The events programme in the town, the events that Renfrewshire Leisure and Renfrewshire Council are involved in, it's first class. We want to be part of that. We will be part of that. So no doubt about that at all.
You can imagine people on the roof space looking over when the Halloween parade goes by. Amazing.
Oh yeah, well, I never thought about that, but that would be great. And we also, me and Gary Gary and I were chatting earlier on today, and we talked about Meerkat Wednesdays, which basically gets you in 2 for 1 on a Wednesday, doesn't it, Gary? So
we harken back to heritage. Heritage runs right through our town, obviously, and you came up with a heritage plan, Andy, to let folk in for nothing.
Absolutely, it's Jam Jar Tuesdays. So basically, bring along your jam jar, and you'll get in for free, and all that glass will get recycled, and we'll have an environmental program that will be running to take care of that. But it harks back to the time that you used to take your Geely jars down to the cinema, and that's what we're thinking. How could we make something like a special showing where you take your jam jar along? That's your ticket in. First come, first served.
There's a good comment for Tommy. Absolutely, Tommy.
ABC Miners.
Big part of the plan. We've got to get young people involved. and get the kids dropped off, get the not just ABC minors for kids as it was in our day, but all sorts of clubs. Andy's got a story that he relates about the DCA up in Aberdeen. So Aberdeen's got a Citizens Cane Club.
Yep.
And this is where we need to touch people who are isolated. So it's not just about young people. When we get isolated people that are on their own, but they can come out on a Tuesday afternoon with their Gilligers or come out on a Thursday to the Citizens Cane Club, and for the price of a movie, for a £5, they'll get in and they'll come out and have a rolling sausage and a cup of tea with their pals.
Yeah.
That's a massive part of what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. And making sure that we've got, someone was asking us about children with autism, and if you're a parent and you've got a child with autism, being able to take them to a space that feels safe, that feels friendly, that's not going to upset your child is really vital. And we've spoken to and engaged with a number of people who either experience that directly or work in that area, and being able to have autistic friendly viewings is vital. The house lights are up, the sound levels are down, just creating that environment. And we want to consult with those groups to ensure that part of our society, that part of our community is not excluded. They're included, they're part of it. So that's really important as well.
Accessibility is not just getting into the building. It is about access to the place. So it is about inclusion and not having the cheapest seats. That you can only get the cheapest seats or at 11:30 on a Tuesday evening.
Yeah,
we need to make this accessible for the community. So we need the community to support it. Community get behind this, then it'll be a facility that will feel like a cinema.
Yep.
A normal cinema, but it's a community hub.
Absolutely. And, it's so important that we have that connection. It's not ours. It's not Andy and Gary's cinema. It's not Paisley Community Trust cinema. It's your cinema. It's the community cinema. It's Paisley cinema. And this building will be under community ownership. That's groundbreaking.
There's a few comments came up about the children of the Paisley cinema disaster, the Glen, Andy, when we had included in Baker Street that there would have been a memorial, and I think we would like to work with everyone connected to the Glen cinema disaster, Tony at Paisley Development Trust and the council, to see if there's something tasteful that is the right place to have something. Paisley's new cinema. We'd like to be part of that conversation, and we'd like to get it right. If our new place is the right place for that, then that's where it will be. Yep. If it's somewhere else, then we'll be part of the conversation.
Yeah, I think some people were asking about the Memorial Garden, and yes, that was a plan in a previous concept, but we can't bring cinema back to the town without paying due respect to the victims of the Glen, and that goes without saying. That will be looked after. We've got Lillian, is digital technologies, VR, augmented reality? Absolutely. Yeah. Lillian, we've been talking about a digital skills academy. We want to be able to teach our young people and our young at heart, in terms of their digital skills, and being able to have access to things like virtual reality development kits, potentially looking at film editing kits, obviously being a main part of that, but let's use it as an education base as well. And we've got some brilliant education stakeholders in the town that we would hope to work with to be able to do that. So
the opportunities run so deep that it's so now that we've revealed this, I think there's going to be another opportunity for us to take feedback, consultation. It's not just been our work. I mean, this is a whole load of people that have input to it. But now that it's out there, it's about tweaking it. And when we get that next grant coming in, it's not an insignificant amount of money that will kick this project off. We're hoping that will be relatively soon. But consultation and feedback and input is so important. So if you've got something that, and your comments all down there are brilliant. So if you've got something that you think, why do you not do that, guys? If you considered that, then we'll take it on board.
Absolutely. Gary, we're nearing our 15-minute extension time limit. I just kind of want to put out a final sort of, comment to everyone. It's been great to see all your Facebook messages and your YouTube messages coming in. We've tried to display as many of those as possible. Let the conversation not end here tonight, though. This is just the start, so let's continue this conversation. And what can you do? Because at Paisley Community Trust, there are no barriers to helping out. You don't need to be invited to work with us or whatever if you can help. If you've got skills, if you've got networks, if you've got connections, if you've got the interest and the passion and you want to work with us, that's the first thing you can do, is get in touch. You can jump onto our website. You can become a member if you live in the PA1, PA2 and PA3 postcodes. But if you can get involved to help us bring this vision into reality, that's going to be critical. The next thing that you can do is tell everyone about it.
Yeah.
And, particularly the stakeholders within the town, if you want this to happen, demand it to happen. Make sure that you say, we want cinema for the town. We want a community hub in our high street. Promote that, support us, talk to the people in influence. And if there is an overwhelming argument and support for it, it's going to be much further down the line of becoming a reality. So that's my plea. That's my ask tonight. Get involved.
Yeah, and there's a practical thing.
Are you frozen, Gary? Let's see if Gary's coming back. He has frozen. So this week, folks, it's Gary that's frozen out, unfortunately. I don't know what's happened there, Gary, but if you can join us, come back in, and I'll just cover the last few final moments. So we hope that you've enjoyed this evening's show. It's been brilliant to have you all on, and the comments have been wonderful. We'll get everything posted up on Facebook. Next week, it's important to mention that we'll be broadcasting again live on Facebook, live on YouTube next Wednesday at 8 p.m. And next week we have our education special. Gary has now completely disappeared off the screen altogether. I'll come and get you in a second, Gary. But next week we have our education special. So we will be joined by both West College Scotland and the University of West of Scotland, looking at the academic play within the town and how important that is to the fabric of Paisley. So do make sure you join in next week. And I feel so sad that I'm on my own. So yeah, it's good night from me.